I mean, if you want to talk to me after, we have to move out pretty quickly between now and the end of the panel, but if you want to talk to me about how angry I get about Nazi portrayal in animated series, I'm really happy to do that.
Well, it's like the people who literally run Comic-Con are like on the next panel, so we gotta go.
First question.
Is it? I don't think it's on. I don't think it's
No,
on.
it's on. We can hear you.
Is it on?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just short.
Been there, sister.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad you have this, and I'd love to know your opinion. There's a new genetic DNA test that's being used to help prove people are Jewish, especially people from Soviet Union getting out. So I just recently found out within the last year that I'm Jewish and never knew. So
Yes.
Welcome. Must now be very sad forever.
Yeah. So I'd
Feel all
love
the
to
guilt.
hear, if you've heard, what else you've heard about this and how you feel about it.
I haven't heard anything about that, but I think that's fascinating, and I hope that people. I mean, I think that some, Tamar mentioned that, and again, I think it's a point of privilege that we should definitely know that we are all three white Ashkenazi Jewish women, and that from New York, which is not spot on, but fairly close to the general perception of being Jewish. So anything that helps people expand. I mean, David Diggs is Jewish, guys. David Diggs is Jewish. So anything that helps people expand their perception of Jews and Jewish origin. There's so many Jewish communities. Go to Marani. It's a Georgian Jewish restaurant in Queens. It's delicious.
That's exactly where my great-grandparents were from Poland.
Yeah.
Came over from South
Same.
Poland. So I found out that that's how I'm Jewish. And I guess the horror that they went through when they got here,
A lot of
they
Jews
told
after
them.
the Holocaust, they didn't talk about their origins, and they just wanted to move on and move forward.
I mean, I think the genetic testing is really good if you want to find out more about Judaism. Like, that's great, and if not, that's cool. Like, I really like genetic testing. I haven't done it yet, but I really, really want to do it. It's probably just gonna be like
Poland,
Jews.
I-
Fine.
I just moved here in June from North Carolina.
Oh,
so
wow.
where would I go in New York?
I live in Riverdale. Everyone talks about Brooklyn. Riverdale too.
I was born in Riverdale.
Same. I was born in Queens.
Depends
Don't go on
like,
Saturdays because nothing is open.
I mean, I think like if you want to find a good Jewish community in New York, it's like whatever you're looking for, Google is your best friend.
It is. And visiting places.
Come get me.
Oh, yes, question.
This one's medium, that was
This
large.
one's
Hi. Riverdale. Super Jewish. My question, so I'm half Jewish and I'm Sephardic, so there's like a little more diversity over there than this sometimes we exist. So because I'm only half and because I don't necessarily fit the like paler, lighter-eyed version of a lot of Jews that people perceive, I'm kind of wondering how you combat like subtle anti-Semitism, like you don't look Jewish, which is the most racist.
That
thing
is
I've
the
ever
worst
said.
compliment I've ever received in my entire life.
Or people saying like you're such a grammar Nazi because correcting people's grammar is totally the same as killing 11 million people. So how do you combat things like super subtle anti-Semitism that people don't see as anti-Semitic?
Just call them out on it. It's racist.
But yeah, but I feel like generally you say, hey, that was super anti-Semitic, and people are like, no.
Well, that's because Jews aren't allowed to say when there's something wrong about it.
This is very true. I also do think, though, that you have to meet people where they're at, and that we do have to accept that, like, hey, we're a teeny tiny fractional minority, and people might not know. Like I've just learned, my sister taught me that the phrase "drink the Kool-Aid" is actually hugely offensive and awful and really reflective of a terrible murder that happened, and not like a fun, cute thing to say. I didn't know that. Education is key. I think not lashing out at people, but also making it clear that, like, hey, this is my background. Think of where this phrase comes from and why we think it's okay to say it.
My brother is actually a journalist who writes about this for a living. And he's actually going to be working also on a book because that's the kind of family we are. But he has written, there's an article that he wrote, I think, for the Washington Post, 5 Myths About Anti-Semitism, which I found really useful in explaining a lot of these things to people who don't recognize that, certain tropes that come up, like of Jews controlling the world or just implying that all Jews are rich and the roots of that and how it's, impacted things over time and how that's an important thing to call out and that people just don't recognize that it's offensive. So yeah, in general, if you can find articles that people are, if the people that you run into are willing to learn and willing to read, that always helps. If they're not willing, then nothing you can say is really going to help, but you can call it out for the onlookers so that at least, if somebody else there, is bothered by it, or on the fence about it, they can at least learn from that.
Yeah. And it goes without saying, but also being an ally to other people and, understanding where they're coming from, even when it's sometimes challenging for us, because I know I've been in that situation, like, what, that offends you? And then I have to go back and like translate it into Jew, and then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it.
And if it offends you, like, ask why they think that it's okay, and vice versa, like what Michal was saying, like if you don't understand why something is offensive to somebody else, also ask. Like, I'm a huge Twitter person, and I literally will have people reaching out to me like, hey, I just saw someone being super anti-Semitic, do you mind saying something, because I don't really know why it's anti-Semitic, I just know that it is not good, so can you tell me why it's not good? And I really appreciate when people do that, because like, good, educate yourself, it's nice, and it'll make the world a better place.
Overall, asking is better than just assuming, in general. I've had that situation where I was like praying in Disney World and people were staring at me, and like, I guess in retrospect it looked kind of weird, but I would have rather people just ask, hey,
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Sophie.
Hi, Sophie.
I'm from Long Island. You talked a lot in the beginning about coming from a family of nerds and like how that was just kind of how you were brought up, and I really get that because that's been me with music, like the Grateful Dead, like my parents are like huge Deadheads. That's been like my kind of upbringing, but my parents are super not nerdy. So they totally support this aspect of my life, like the nerd culture, and they like are excited for me to go to cons, but they don't get how can I explain it to them in terms that they're gonna understand.
So I write about K-pop for a living. If anyone doesn't know what that is, that's Korean pop music. My parents have no idea what I do. I write regularly for pretty big outlets, and they still have no idea what they do. They just know that they have Google alerts up, so if my name shows up on like CNN, they get really excited. They're just like excited for me.
That's never happened to me.
Just like, I don't really think that I need to force it on them. Like, I tried to get my mom to listen to some of the music once, like, it didn't really work at all. And I just feel like they appreciate what I like without having to like it themselves. So like, if you go home today and you're like, I had a great time at the con, and if they ask, okay, what do, you tell them. But if they're like, I wouldn't suggest forcing them to sit down to watch all the extended versions of Lord of the Rings. Like, that will probably
No, I don't want to like make them watch it. I just want to kind of relate it to them in like a Jewish sense of like connecting. Because my dad, he actually grew up in Flatbush, which is like, yeah. He grew up in Flatbush. He went to yeshiva, like he did the whole thing. So I want to just converse with him about the connections that I draw in ways that he can kind of understand it and digest it.
So I think that's, I definitely relate because my mother is like super not a geek. Like, it's incredible. One thing for a lot of you. She did, actually, yeah. I think she's still a little bit confused, but in a good way. But I think, something that you can do, like not sitting down and forcing them to watch all of Lord of the Rings, but for example, right, but, my siblings and I watched Stranger Things, and we were like, Mom, you're gonna love this show. Turns out she does love the show. So we can connect with her over that. I don't think she really gets what, why I would want to come here and stand online for a panel for, a whole bunch of hours, but you can connect it to something that they value. And look, if you want to use like the metaphor from the beginning of like, we all stood in line to talk to God for a really long time on Yom Kippur, and obviously the Havdalah is not the same, but we are throwing ourselves physically into something, that we love, and
like,
that's, yeah.
I think, like, because you said your dad went to, like, yeshiva, like, if you just tell him, like, people really delving deep into, like, fandom or something is, like, similar to, like, him having to study Talmud in school. Like, that would probably work, too. Like, I had SM's dad as a teacher in elementary school, and he taught me Talmud, and I definitely remember writing a Harry Potter page for Talmud class because he wanted us to learn how Talmud was written, and we pretty much had to be like,
You
and
pick your own
Snape did this,
subject,
and
yeah.
I remember people did Simpsons and stuff, just like, delving into fandom isn't that different from delving into any sort of religion. It's just like getting below the surface level of the first book or first movie and talking about it with your friends.
When you talk about the ideas that are in, you know, like if you like a book, you know, you can talk about why you like the book, you know, the specifics of it, you know, what the character had in common with you, you know, and like on our podcast, we tend to talk about, you know, themes that, you know, resonate with us. Like each episode we have, you know, some kind of theme. Like we did for Yom Kippur, we did redemption arcs, and you know why we.
Darth Vader is not one.
Yes, well, and why
Somebody on
some,
Twitter kind of made me rethink that. Now I don't know how I
I
feel.
didn't read
It's
that.
complicated.
and does death atone for all mistakes and things like that. But
There you go.
yeah, if you talk about, you know, the concepts, you know, they might be more interested, you know, in exploring the source material themselves or not, but they'll at least, you know, they can see that, you know, that it's not something that's baseless, that you do have, you know, a human investment in it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Meryl. I'm from North Jersey. There we go.
I love how everybody's like saying where they're from, and it's like Jewish geography, and I just love it.
So I have a question about Jewish humor. As a very secular New York Jew, I felt myself pretty represented in things like Seinfeld, you know, Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, stuff like that, which are all really, really funny. But sometimes I worry that there might be a bit of an echo chamber. Like I, as a Jew, I see this, I think, okay, there is something culturally that speaks to me there. Are non-Jews seeing this in some other way that we should be worried about, especially with a lot of the self-deprecating humor that comes from a lot of this?
So, I just got really, really excited. There is a mini documentary on YouTube by Lindsay Ellis about Mel Brooks's use of Nazism and anti-Semitic humor in his movies, and like the producers and Blazing Saddles, and she pretty much touches on the fact that there are things that Jews are allowed to do that other people aren't allowed to in jokes, and the problem is that nowadays that's not being kept the way it was a few decades ago. And to the degree where Mel Brooks has spoken out against some of that humor, even though he's like, Jewish comedian, like the best one of the generation, like there's so much you can do as a Jew and so much you can understand as a Jew, and it is like an echo chamber, like it's sometimes can be problematic, and like we were talking about before, like the middle ground, that's kind of what I think Hollywood sees as the middle ground of Jews. Like you can make jokes about Judaism, that's great, but at the same time it's also reinforcing stereotypes about Judaism. So I find it personally really problematic when there's just like so many jokes about Jewish mother guilt. Like I think there's a new NBC sitcom about a son who moves back in with his parents in the same apartment as his parents after he gets divorced. And I was just watching the trailer and banging my head against the wall because we do not need a whole sitcom about parents like interfering in their sons' lives because they're Jewish parents. I think it is problematic, and I kind of want to see it change. Like there's other forms of comedy that Jews can do that aren't just bashing Jewish stereotypes that we've seen forever and ever. And I think it'd be kind of cool if Jewish comedians nowadays could explore what it means a little bit, not just to be saying jokes that you think everybody can understand about Jews, but that Jews might appreciate a little bit more because they're Jewish. And like, I don't necessarily think that other comedians are meant to make jokes that are laughing at themselves all the time. I think if you had something like Crazy Rich-Girlfriend that didn't, like Crazy Rich-Girlfriend doesn't, Crazy Ex, sorry.
Oh my God,
sorry.
Tamar, you're so like
Sorry.
you're rich. Like, what are you talking
Sorry.
You're obviously mixing it up with Crazy Rich Asians.
That's exactly what I was thinking of, actually. I was thinking fresh off the boat, and I was thinking of all three at once. So Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I really do not like it because I feel like a lot of the time the point is we're making fun of Rachel's Judaism. It's not Rachel is Jewish and she's laughing about something that like her culture does. It's like, we are Jewish writers, so we're gonna write Jew jokes because we can, and nobody's gonna say anything because Rachel's Jewish.
You know, like, I sort of feel like we're in an interesting spot because I think that humor like Seinfeld and like Mel Brooks came from a very kind of, like, that stuff was newer, you know, than obviously it is now. And I feel like that sort of included in that is sort of like the paradox of being Jewish, right? Like, especially white Ashkenazi Jews whose humor of that and whose experience is represented in that kind of humor, we sort of fly under the radar and like we distinguish ourselves through bagels, you know, lots and stuff like that. And I think that like on the plus side, I think that people are definitely getting more amenable to the idea that like, hey, there are things that people in a culture can say that people out of the culture shouldn't say, you know, and that's fine, like that's okay. And I think that it's okay for us as Jews to be like, to stand up when something like that happens and be like, hey, just, you know, that's like, it's something, you know, like be like, Judy Hopps. Yeah. A bunny can call another bunny cute, but another animal cannot call it a bunny cute.
I think just when something like a joke about bagels and lox is like, that's the only thing people know about Jews, I think that's when it gets problematic. And the documentary I was referencing before about Mel Brooks, pretty much white supremacists have now taken Mel Brooks's humor and turned it into white supremacist humor. So that's kind of not okay.
We should interview Lindsay about that.
We should.
I sound like I know her. Guys, tweet Lindsay Ellis and tell her that
I just think that Jewish humor has always been very cathartic, and I think it's at kind of a crossroads right now where maybe it should be less about humor and more about the Judaism, Jewish people needing to say something, not just laughing at themselves all the time. That's just my take.
Thank you. Thank you for alerting me to this TV show that sounds like it's going to be incredibly anti-Semitic. It's probably
to be fair, I do want to say, like, I always feel bad, like,
I haven't watched it.
right, I feel bad kind of judging things, especially like comedies and stuff, like they are going for, like, you're trying to establish a tone. Not that it's like great or acceptable, but I do sort of like try and be like, okay, maybe it's more than it seems. Because a lot of the times TV shows that's how they function, that's how they're written.
We can be hopeful that it won't be a complete trash
Yes.
fire.
But the marketing could be such that the marketing itself is contributing to the belittling of these
That's
issues.
absolutely true.
I haven't seen any of this.
Yeah.
But I do want to raise something that generally in geek culture, when we see things that are racist or sexist or anti-Semitic, people's response is to act individually. But if there's one thing that we've learned from Jewish union leaders like Sidney Hildman and Al Shanker is that we have a lot more power when we act collectively. And there haven't really been spaces that have been established for Jewish nerds or Jewish cultural fans to take action individually. I don't think saying the ADL is not an answer for this for me. I think that something that folks in the space could talk about is how we're going to act collectively to exert our power in moments where we have to address problems.
There are a lot of good, I can't believe I'm saying this, but there are a lot of good Jewish Tumblrs. Do you run one? There's some really good people who, the girl behind you was like, there are a lot of good ones that kind of just set it out there, kind of staking out a Jewish place in the social justice sphere. And do good work. I think that, that's part of what we're trying to do here. Like we
talk about
definitely
racism a lot.
Yeah.
We're not activists, and that's not really our aim.
No, but in terms of just like providing a space to talk about things, I think different places have different needs, and I think it would be, I think it's kind of exciting in a way that, like, you're right, there isn't kind of. I didn't expect people to come to a panel called Nice Jewish Fangirls. Like, I thought that would be definitionally super limiting. And yeah, there are a ton of guys here. I'm assuming that there are a ton of people who are not Jewish here, so thank you, by the way, because that's really cool of you to come. Shout out to the Gentiles!
Michal Hassan said, I think she referenced at the beginning, Michal started a Facebook page called Orthodox Ladies United in Fandom, Ola. A bunch of you here, very nice. And that was made specifically for Orthodox women who don't feel like there is any space for them anywhere on the internet, but there's not really anything equivalent just for Jews in general, and I think some place like that would be great for something like this. Like, someone correct me, start a Facebook group. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any Jews who fan
Fandom started
Facebook.
from Boston, Arisha last year.
Oh.
From Fandom.
Nice,
Yeah.
very nice. And yeah, so in terms of something,
From the same-
like, I have found it's a little tricky because some people do want to keep their fandom and their politics separate, which is fine, that's their prerogative. But I think you have to respect that, and if you create a space, which I definitely believe that there is, I definitely think there's a lot of opportunity to do so, then make it clear, like, this is a place for advancement, a place that we can come together in the spirit of those organizers, and I think it's not there because there's an opportunity for it.
I just want to say that I don't know 100% if this was the actual cause, because most of the articles that I've read about it, about the Cursed Child was originally, the tickets were supposed to go on sale on the holiday, on the Hog, and a lot of Jewish Broadway fans were very, very upset about this, and I don't know how much their input weighed into it. There were Potterheads and Broadway fans, and like there was like Humans of Broadway tweeted about how, you know, they were disappointed that they wouldn't be able to get tickets, and so a bunch of people, you know, rallied around that tweet, and I don't know, like, numerically if it, you know, if it was really part of the factors that went into this, but they did ultimately change the date of the release so that people could get them, so they pushed them off, I think 1 week, so that the holiday would be over.
It would have been really nice
So-
if they had done that for any of the book releases, so I could have
Yeah.
gone to them every single one.
So I'm saying that there is definitely potential for collective action, and, you know, it's all really a matter of creating a space and letting people know about it.
Yeah. Email us if you start a place.
Yeah, I'm Ilana Brooklyn on Twitter, happy to talk.
Hi,
So-
awesome. Tweet at us.
Hi, I'm Becca, and I was wondering if you guys ever find yourselves looking at a character that isn't explicitly stated to be Jewish, but you find yourselves saying that character is Jewish, I'm convinced that character is Jewish, and if so, which characters?
The Space Jew in Firefly, does anyone know what I'm talking about? I actually, at one point, I teamed up with my brother and I got this guy's contact information, and then my brother interviewed him and found out that like this role was originally envisioned for like a Hasidic Jew in Hasidic garb, and it was supposed to be something extreme like that, but this actor came in and he did his you know, portrayal of the character, and it came across as so completely Jewish, even though the actor is actually not Jewish, but it came across as so Jewish that they decided to forego the costume. So he's just, if you look closely, I think he's wearing a kippah, he's wearing yarmulke, and he's wearing tzitzit, but he's not wearing any of the, you know, of the coat or the shtreimel or any of the other traditional clothing.
I mean, my initial answer was, okay, weird thing, like, sometimes there's, like, Jewish characters who are clearly Jewish, and we all know that they're Jewish, and then, like, non-Jewish people are like, what do you mean? Like, when J.K. Rowling was like, yeah, of course Anthony Goldstein's Jewish, people were like, she's pandering, and we were like, no, we knew that. We, like, celebrated and danced in the street because there was a Jew in Harry Potter. Like, like, come on. So I think that's an interesting thing. I did actually see Hello Dolly kind of recently, and I don't remember the male lead's name, but like, and Dolly herself. Yes, I kind of viewed them both as Jewish, and I don't know why. Like, it was.
I think that's neat.
She's Dolly Levi, yeah.
Just back to Harry Potter, I definitely grew up thinking like, Hermione's probably Jewish. She has bushy brown hair, and like I like all the theories that she could also be black, but she's bushy brown hair and she reads a lot. Like her parents are dentists, she's Jewish.
Hello, my name's Kenny. I'm from Boston. Yeah. So my question, first up, with the whole CW Nazi show thingy, from the marketing I've seen, it looks like they're building up Nazi characters to watch all the main characters punch them in the face a lot.
Which I appreciate, but I still don't like it.
Just to put more context on that, and then my question is, at the beginning you mentioned about Sarah J. Maas's books being like Jewish, and like I've read them and I never like noticed the Jewish in them.
Did you read Throne of Glass or the other series?
I read I got like most of the way through Throne of Glass, and now I just have my friend yelling at me every day to finish it. But I was wondering if you could like explain more about Sarah J. Maas.
So in her other series, The Court of Thorns and Roses, whatever each of the books are called, I don't know what the whole series is called. She has like the language that they have to decode is called Lashon HaKodesh, which is the Hebrew for like the holy word. So it's the holy language. So it's literally like Lashon HaKodesh, and like somebody has to read it all. And I'm just like, oh, cool. That's like there's some random Hebrew words shouted out every once in a while. I was like, oh,
Yeah, I kind of don't like that.
I googled.
Like,
She's
come up
Jewish.
with your own thing.
She's Jewish.
You know.
So she can't. So she's yeah.
Okay, all right, but still, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I still don't like it. Like it's just nice.
I know that's gonna be personal.
I like when you know, occasionally you have to decode something and like the character says, oh, it's an atbash, and I'm like, I know what atbash is. My dad uses that for extra credit.
Thank you.
Hi.
I'm Leora, and as we actually mentioned before, I do run a rather Jewish Tumblr. My blog says unapologetically Jewish in it.
Woo!
So follow you.
I follow you.
Cool! That's awesome! My question is actually considering a couple of blogs I follow. As somebody said before, there is a constant projecting of Judaism, I find in the Jumbler community, which is Jewish Tumblr. I don't know. Like, there's a blog I follow called Your Fave is Jewish, which is where they take a specific character and they'll put like a mood board. Finn, I happen to see from Star Wars, is a big one because we don't know anything about his past. I wanted your opinions on that, and on the flip side, your opinions on something like Magneto, whose Judaism was actually erased in the X-Men comics because they couldn't fit it in, which really upsets me, and I'm not going to get into that.
Like 5 minutes to discuss both of these.
I would just say I'm totally for reimagining characters as Jewish. Like, freaking go for it. Like, no, you don't like it? Okay, I like it.
I'm pro. It's 2 against 1.
I want her opinion as well.
Oh yeah. Because 3 Jews never had 2 opinions. I'm for it.
I think if the character has his or her or their own like actual backgrounds, like definitely don't try to change it to make it Jewish. I think Finn is like fun, like maybe he could be Jewish. I don't really think there's any sort of religion of like Judaism or Christianity in Star Wars, but like I think like someone like I said Hermione, like that made sense to me because like they never discussed it. But I think like
erasure would be bad.
Yeah, don't erase.
Erasure would be bad. But if the character is a blank slate and you want to fill that in by sticking Jew in there, why not?
So you could add it like Magneto's children who are
Jewish,
and they aren't in the movies.
Yeah, that actually, I get it. I'm in the position a lot of the time where I'm like, okay, I get it. I get we're teeny tiny. I get it. But I also, like, would it have killed you to have Scarlet Witch wear a Jewish star? Like, would that have been, I mean, like, I rewrote Ultron in my head where it's like, of course, the twins were like saying Shema as the bomb was like, you know, whatever, and like, and the whole movie's about religion. Like, come on, Joss, what are you doing, man? But you know, I as much as I demand representation, sometimes I'm like, okay, I get it, not this time.
I think the Magneto thing is kind of hard because a lot of the time, like, Magneto's so, like, he's a Holocaust survivor who uses that as a reason why he's a villain, but at the same time, but I think that's what he is. I think it's just like, okay, we don't want to have to address that he's, like, someone who is a survivor and a victim of other people trying to kill him.
A redeemable quality?
I think that's why they wrote it out. They don't want him to be redeemable. They're just like, here, he's a bad Jew.
The super villain.
Which is also why we need more representation, because like deal with it, tackle it, dig into it, guys. Come on.
Is this gonna be
We
the
have,
last question?
we have only time for one more question.
But we'll hang around outside so you can come talk to us.
Hello. Hi. Hi, I'm Zachary, 5 town. Apparently people like the podcast. So my question is so there's a lot of discussion in this panel of like how Jews are so represented in a very like cliched way or a very specific way. So my question is more like, why does the panel think that happened in the first place? That Jews sort of ended up being only like really secular Jews or like Hasidic?
Well, I think it's because it's just easier to write extremes. I mean, like as you see this on pretty much any TV show ever, that like as the show goes on and on and on, they run out of ways to keep the characters nuanced, and they just kind of condense the characters down to 1 or 2 basic traits, and those just get extremified. I think the term on tvtropes.org is flanderized, and things just they just emphasize like 1 or 2 traits,